Now, how many of you have decided to pick up a new skill over the pandemic? Throughout those difficult times, when lockdown restrictions were enforced, I decided to embrace a valuable skill that I think every student should have. That's right, cooking. From perfecting shrimp pasta and lasagna to learning how to frost Black Forest cakes, I had my heart set on becoming the next Martha Stewart. I even created a YouTube channel dedicated to my culinary projects, sharing my newfound passion to the online community. But by the end of that summer, something within me began to shift. I found myself creating these mouth-watering dishes, only to shy away from actually eating them. Instead, I would assign my sister to be the taste tester, having her sample interview each dish that I'd prepare. I began avoiding certain foods, plating my own meals, and becoming more and more reserved at the dinner table. Dining out made me anxious, so I avoided it altogether. And even after the pandemic, I continued to engage in this type of behavior, completely unaware of how it was actually harming me. It wasn't until a serious warning at the doctor's office that the gravity of the situation finally sank in. It had taken me nearly a year to realize that this behavior was far from normal. A year to realize that I joined the ranks of 29 million Americans, the number predicted by the Mayo Clinic to grapple with an eating disorder at some point in their lives. Now, the thing about an eating disorder is that it's not something that comes to you overnight or something that you're born with either. In fact, prior to the pandemic, I had no trouble with food. Growing up in an Uzbek household, I experienced a culture where food was not just a daily necessity, but a central and vital part to our tradition and way of life. I had no trouble cleaning my plate or asking for seconds, and I never avoided any food because of its perceived unhealthiness. But sometimes, our environment can influence us in ways that we don't want it to. Ballet classes, some unkind elementary school comments about my appearance, and the increasing exposure to social media's demonization of food slowly set the stage for my struggles with body image. The more I progressed in ballet, the more I couldn't help but compare myself to the girls next to me in the mirror. I suddenly became conscious of my food intake compared to others, believing that I was doing something wrong when I had twice as much on my plate. I even remember stepping on the scale and cringing at the number, thinking that I'd somehow overstepped an unspoken boundary. And so, from that moment on, I felt compelled to control my body image. I meticulously counted calories, pushed myself through excessive workouts, and crafted rigid food rules to govern my meals, like no snacking during the day, no liquid calories, and to chew gum if you're hungry. The crazy part is that for a long time, I genuinely believed that I was on the right path, even receiving compliments in the beginning. Though as I continued to stick to these eating habits, they grew progressively more extreme and challenging to break. It felt as if my brain had established some reward system, fueled by dopamine, the feel-good hormone, and activating each time I adhere to these rules. In other words, restricting provided me with the same sense of accomplishment as acing a test would. And seeing my shrinking body frame in the mirror only intensified that feeling. Without knowing it at the time, I was spiraling down a perilous physical and mental state. And when my parents voiced their concerns, I denied that a problem even existed. I was wrong, of course. In my denial, I was harboring a huge problem, one that happened to drain my happiness, energy levels, and interpersonal relationships. It was bad. But then someone spoke up. It was at a Halloween party, the same year that my weight had reached a critical point. I remember one of my close friends pulling me aside and sharing her concerns. She told me that she could see the hunger in my eyes as I eyed so many delicious dishes, but never reached for any of them. She also said that she had struggled with something similar, and that it was painful for her to watch me suffer like this. So she reached out, trying to make me understand the harm in that behavior based on her own past struggles. That night, I remember being consumed with such anger and embarrassment. I mean, who is she to tell me that there was something wrong? But now, I completely understand her reaction. Anorexia nervosa, an eating disorder characterized by an intense fear of weight gain, isn't something to be taken lightly. There are numerous misconceptions that surround anorexia, ones that unfortunately the general public continues to believe in. I, for one, used to think that it was simple to identify someone suffering from it, as you can just look at them. But this couldn't be further from the truth, as physical appearance is only a small factor. This means that numerous teenagers could be grappling with an eating disorder right under our noses, and we may never truly know. This is the precise reason that we as a society need to raise more awareness. No one deserves to suffer from an eating disorder, because in doing so, they lose a part of themselves. Due to anorexia, I was no longer the person who was radiating boundless energy, no longer the one belting out the lyrics to Frozen, and no longer the individual who tasted the food she prepared. All of that was taken away from me, leaving me in a constant state of depression, fatigue, and irritability. But as soon as you start to regain what you have lost, life becomes a lot sweeter. The journey of recovery was a challenging and necessary process that forced me to seek help in times of vulnerability. It forced me to seek professional and personal help, assistance that I will always be grateful for. To say that I've recovered from anorexia would be a lie. I continue to struggle with it each day. But with the unwavering support of my family and the people who I love and trust, I am proud to say that I'm reclaiming my identity and learning to embrace the joys of life that I've been deprived of for so long. Now, as I'm sharing this story with you, you may be wondering why I'm sharing this particular personal struggle. Well, it's because someone has to. Many of us are afraid to be vulnerable, myself included, because it can be terrifying sharing something that you've always kept to yourself. A few months ago, for example, I missed the chance to be vulnerable. It was when I entered the restroom and unexpectedly heard the sound of someone purging in the neighboring stall. In that moment, an overwhelming urge surged within me to reach out, to offer comfort and understanding, and to assure the person that whatever that they were going through wasn't worth it. But I didn't, and I will always regret that. And so with this story, I aim to convey a message of hope and strength to anyone who may be silently struggling out there. Because this isn't just about my journey. This is about collective resilience in the face of adversity. Many people among us hide their struggles, and so it's essential that we cultivate empathy and reach out to those who may be silently battling those inner demons. We should also be engaging in self-reflection. It's in these moments of introspection that we understand the depth of our struggles and recognize the strength it takes to confront them. We must discover resilience within ourselves, and we can't do it alone. So to facilitate a more positive and encouraging atmosphere, I say that it is time. It is time to speak up about our challenges. It is time to encourage open conversations about topics previously deemed taboo with the people you love and trust. It is time to empower those who are close to you and recognize that every one of us has a vulnerability. Whether it's an adult, high school student, or even that random neighbor across the street, everyone has a narrative that deserves to be shared and understood. Ultimately, we must recognize that even amid adversity, we can't navigate this journey alone. Let's refuse to let obstacles define us. Instead, let's acknowledge them as challenges, seek the support we need, and embark on a journey of rediscovery. But let's also become the friend that reaches out, not being afraid to uplift others who are struggling. Only then can we truly live empowered. And only then can we finally discover that light that's at the end of the dark mental tunnel. Thank you.